I'm currently the director of Google for Asia Pacific Public Sector. I left the government about 7 months ago. I used to be the Chief Digital Technology Officer for the government in Singapore and did very much the digital transformation as well as the building up of GovTech in Singapore. So today, what I'm going to do is that I'll spend the next 35 minutes talking a lot about how the situation has changed dramatically in the technology world, as well as within the government. And then I'll talk a little bit about technology itself and what are the new technology that is going to influence or change the way we work significantly. And then I'll talk a little bit about people, which is something that's quite near and dear to me as you go forward. So let's start. If you look at the strategic imperative today, right, we are all facing a very challenging future. There is a huge environment shift whereby governments as well as organizations are looking more and more towards payback for technology. That means technology needs to yield benefits, right? It's no more just for free. People don't just invest for free. They want payback. And that is very tough to generate, especially within the public sector. The second thing is that this is something that is going to hit all of us very, very badly, trust and safety. When you talk about the social media companies not doing fact-checking, you talk about all the scams that's happening in this world. We are living in a new world whereby technology is so pervasive that you will end up having the common citizens facing a lot of risk because of their money, their identity, their livelihood are being challenged by technology by itself. Then we got a third factor, the concept of zero tolerance. What do I mean by that? In the past, when your website goes down for 2 days, nobody cares, right? Nobody cares. But in today's world, because people use technology so much, when the website goes down for 1 hour, you get all kinds of complaints. And next day, tomorrow morning, you see newspaper front page. It happened to banks, it happens to government, everywhere. So the tolerance for failure in your technology has become just impossible to maintain. So when you say that your website is running at 99.9%, people say it's not enough. They want 4 nines, they want 5 nines. How do you achieve that? So that's a very big area. So those are the environment that we are operating in, whichever country you go to. You can't hear it? Huh? Use this instead. Why? Use this. So do I have to take this off? I use a microphone. Okay, do you want me to use a microphone? Yeah, now I feel as though I'm singing karaoke here. Okay, the second part here, you realize, is a technology shift. You know, I work in Google, and trust me, the shift doesn't happen in years. It happens in months and even weeks. I was telling Kunat just now that every few months, there'll be a big announcement, and all of us got to go for training. And 3 technology shifts are happening so fast, right? One is cloud. As the English saying, you can run, but you cannot hide. Cloud is going to be there for a long time to come, and cloud is going to be pervasive in everything you do. Second thing, I think everybody talks about it every day, AI. And I'll talk a little bit about this later on. And the third thing that's coming up very quickly is quantum. You'll be surprised. Just about 3 years back, when you talk about quantum, people don't take you seriously. But today, just recently, Google just released the Willow chip. Quantum has come down from a building to a chip. That's changed a lot, okay? Then, you know what's the biggest problem with most big companies in public sector? It's what we call the debt and burden. What do I mean by debt and burden? One, all governments and large companies, even banks, are straddled with legacy systems. We're saying that some of them are still running a mainframe or AS400. Now, what does it mean? It's scary, right? You're talking about mainframe, which is a technology that was probably, 40 years ago? And we're talking about AI and cloud right now. How do you bridge that gap? The transformation from all these legacy systems to the modern technology is going to be a huge challenge for every one of us. Secondly, policy. Most government and even private companies have antiquated technology policy. For many governments, they still do not allow, for example, the government to go on the cloud. because the policy makers don't understand these things. So for them, everything is, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. And that prevents you actually from progress. Thailand is in the process right now of drafting a cloud policy. I'm actually helping the government doing that, because the cloud policy is going to be very important. It will actually dramatically change the way the government looks at new technologies like cloud as we go forward. And then finally, I think the last part, this is the scariest part, capability. The thing is this, right? If you don't have the capability today, you can't progress. And we, like, for example, we are trying to hire a lot of people. We can't find the people because people don't have that background and the capability. So how do you keep improving the people that we run, we manage? Because if we don't inject capability in them, they'll never find a job later on. So it's something that's very, very serious, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. Okay, so I'll go a bit faster. So how do you make this change happen, right? In the government, when I first started, the whole thing was about creating what I call a mindset change. It's not about technology at first, it's about mindset change. We need to move from what we call inside out to outside in. And what does it mean? For most organizations and government, it's all about what I do from the inside. My ministry do this, my ministry do that, and nobody cares about what the customer thinks. Honestly, the only thing that matters is the customer. And when I first made a speech about 8 years ago, one of the government officials pulled me aside and said, hey, why you keep talking about customer, right? What's wrong with you? Government doesn't have a customer. I said, oh my God, my job is even more difficult than you think, right? Because there is no such thing to the government as being customer-centric. They just want to do their business from inside out. Whereas, every one of you who are citizens here expect one government. You don't want to deal with 20 departments. You want to deal with one government, right? So you are the customer. And if the government doesn't think that way, they'll never progress. So this is one very important point there. There's one more thing which is very important, need versus want. I'll explain this a little bit. A lot of people, when I was transforming the Singapore government, asked me, will the government become like a Amazon.com? And I told them very clearly, the government will never become an Amazon.com. You know why? You go to Amazon.com because you want something. You want to buy something. So it's a joy. It's a joy to go to the website, you buy something, and then it comes 3 days later, you feel very happy. Why do you go to the government? You go to the government because you have to pay a fine, because the government wants you to file something, because if you don't do it, they'll throw you in jail. So the concept is very different, right? It's not about want, it's about need. So the concept behind designing government sites and application is not about making it so fancy and everything. It's about making it as simple and as efficient as possible, because you don't want to spend 1 more minute with the government. It's irritating, right? And then the last thing is this. Governments never focus on outcome. They focus on what we call output. Oh, I worked very hard. I deployed 300 websites, but that's not the point. The point is that what outcome have you achieved by doing something like that? So this mindset change, these 4 things, was very, very hard to achieve within the Singapore government. I spent literally the first 5 years pushing this kind of thinking, which was very, very difficult. Now, many people ask me, so what are the key to success being able to make the change in government? Actually, there are 4 things. Number 1, top leadership commitment. If your prime minister and your ministers don't believe in it, don't do it. You're wasting your time. I'm being very honest. I was very lucky because when I was driving this in Singapore, I had the support of the prime minister himself. And the prime minister is he's quite geeky. He's a technology guy. He loves technology. I brief him every month. Can you believe that? That's the amount of interaction I had with him. And once he's supportive, you'll be surprised that the rest of the government will fall into place. But if he's not supportive, if he's not driving it, you got a problem. So that's number 1. Number 2, the government needs to shape the right behavior by getting people who understand to control the budget. Very important. So we have this thing in Singapore called the Public Sector Investment Review Committee. It was chaired by the Ministry of Finance and myself. I was the government chief technology officer. So two of us chair it, and we use the budget to shape the right behavior. So for example, people say, oh, I want this project for $50 million. Then we say, no, why don't you go to the cloud? It's only $20 million. So if you don't have the right people running the budget and being able to shape the right behavior, it will never work. Third, one of the first things I did for GovTech was to build a tech platform. We call it the SG Tech Stack, Singapore Government Tech Stack. We had a cloud layer, which is an infrastructure layer, and we had multi-cloud. So we had like Azure, AWS, Google, etc. Then we have the tech layer, which includes, for example, your CI/CD layer, includes your API gateways, includes your full stack computing, basically, right? And then we have a front end whereby we actually have also design standards for the front end. So that every agencies that built on the common stack, it makes things a lot more effective, it reduces the cost significantly, and more importantly, the quality control. Because once I have a straight CI/CD platform, I can control the quality of it. Because if I check the codes, it doesn't come through, it will not get out, period. So this is the third thing we did, a platform approach to tech development. And then the last thing is really, how do you drive visible public outcome? This is, again, very important. The public needs to support you and say that the government is spending money on doing this because it benefits me. Because if it doesn't benefit the citizen, then why do it? And I think the biggest test we had was COVID. The citizens were very happy because we did so much technology in COVID that really helped manage the pandemic big time. All the way from contact tracing down to even safe entry to everything. All those were done by my team, actually. And we were doing it like 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 months, kind of stuff. So outcome is very important. Then public will support you, right? So these are really 4 of the very important ingredients for a government to be successful in its digital transformation. And then I'll talk a little bit more about this thing called the reduction mindset. Governments have undue complexity. Governments like to inject complexity in the system. Actually, government systems shouldn't be so complex. But over the years, they keep piling on more and more things. They never refactor anything. They never change the policy. Grandfather every single thing in their policy. The complexity is terrible. And that's why the system fails. So before we do a new system, we want the policy guys to review the policy and reduce complexity. Then you got a better chance of success. Number 2 is duplication. Every government has probably about 50 versions of something. Let's say a licensing system. I'm sure the Thai government got about 100 of them. Trust me. A grant system. I'm sure the Thai government has 100 of them. Why do you need 100 of them? Why do you need 50 of them? So like, for example, the licensing system in Singapore, we built it into one common platform. All the licenses get onboarded into one platform, right? You're reducing duplication. That's very important. Can you imagine if every system cost you $20 million, you got 100 of them? Well, think of it, it's $2 billion, right? When I probably can build it for $100 million. So that's very important. Third thing is tech debt. For the tech people here, you understand the concept of refactoring and reducing your tech debt. Legacy systems kills you. If you don't spend money and time to reduce the tech debt, migrate legacy systems out, refactor systems, you'll never succeed. And the last one is toil. What is toil? You notice that technology today, even today, is full of toil. You look at a data center, for example, any data center, local data center, walk in there. How many people are there? There are probably hundreds of people in there. A few hundred people running a data center. Why? I walk into a Google data center, which is probably 10 times the size, and there's probably 20 people there. Because they have automated everything. I mean, some of you are tech, so you probably understand the concept SRE, Site Reliability Engineering. That was invented by Google. And it was very important because what it did was to take away a lot of this meaningless toil, or what you call manual labor, right? And that's why a hyperscaler can be so much more efficient than a local player, because it's about reducing toil as you go forward. So the lesson that we learn is that we need to move from growth to scale. And it's something that we talk about a lot in the tech industry. If you just grow headcount, right, the linear growth in headcount doesn't give you a lot of impact. You add 5 more people, sure, a little bit more. You add 10 more people, yeah, sure. But there's a limit to how much you can add because people are expensive. So what do you need to do? You need to adopt products. Products helps you take away a lot of these do-it-yourself things. You need to adopt platform, which I mentioned quite a fair bit. You need to go into ecosystems and actually not just do yourself, get the ecosystem involved. This way, you can really scale. And in Google, we talk a lot about 10x. Because you need to manage the 10x. If you don't do that, you will never be able to scale. And which also means your company will never be able to reach that level of competency that's needed as you go forward. So this is a very serious problem. Okay, now let me talk about the technology part. I know I got about another 20 minutes. When I say democratization of technology, what do I mean? We were all many of us who are old enough, right, was using mainframes. I did COBOL, I did C programming before, I did mainframe before. We were very much shackled. It was very difficult to get things done. But technology has changed. And if you don't adopt it, you got a problem. So I got this picture, right? I said, going to cloud, right, it's like a young person leaving home for the first time. It's full of freedom, excitement, anxiety, but it's also full of risk, fear, and uncertainty. That's the reality what we go through when we go to cloud. The Singapore government went through the cloud journey 8 years ago. We started in 2016, I think, right? And today, 70% of all government workloads and data are on the public cloud, whether it's AWS, Google, or Azure. But when we first started, we were all very excited. It's almost like this girl walking into the forest, but we were all very scared, actually, because there are a lot of unknowns as you go forward, right? But you must understand that cloud adoption is not just about cost. Many people say, oh, you go to the cloud because it's cheaper. It's not true. It's many more things. We can talk to any one of this in detail, but it's actually quite an important way of thinking why cloud is important. It's cost, it's risk, it's resiliency. If you want resiliency, the cloud is ultimate resiliency. You can never match the resiliency of a cloud, right? For example, scalability. Well, honestly, if you want to scale infinitely, the cloud is the way to go. So these are many of the considerations that you need to think through when you go to the cloud. And the business case I had to put together to convince my prime minister at the time to adopt cloud, right? Because it's not just about cost. Cloud may not be cheaper, but it can give you many other things, depending on how you implement it. Which then comes to this one. We always think of cloud as one single flavor, but it's not true. That's why I say it can be cheaper, it may not be cheaper, depending. We can go all the way from a pure commercial cloud, which is very low cost, tremendous scalability and resiliency, all the way to a distributed cloud that is disconnected or air-gapped. That's what we are talking about today. And as a government or as a large organization, depending on your needs, depending on the security of your data, etc., you might need this, an air-gapped solution that's still cloud-based, right? So always think of a cloud as a portfolio. It's never just a single thing. It depends on how you look at it. And we are doing a lot of work right now on this right end, this product called GDCH, which is very much an air-gapped cloud. And I can talk a lot more to any of you interested in this. Now, AI. We first thought that maybe in 2022, when we're talking about AI, we thought that, oh yeah, it's another thing, people are just running around, new flavor on the block. But if you all know Gartner hype cycle, right? We talk about the peak of inflated expectation. That was maybe 2023. But today, it's not the case anymore. AI is real. It's more real than any of you can imagine. It's scaring the heck out of me every day, right? The kind of use cases that people are putting through AI. So it's actually working. It's no more just ChatGPT having fun. It's not about that. It's gone beyond the concept. It's real. And these are some of the use cases and used by highly, highly successful companies. And a lot of people came to me and say, hey, which large language model is it better? You guys talk about your Google stuff, etc. How about ChatGPT? How about Llama? How about Claude, etc.? But that's not the point. The point about AI is not about the large language models. It's about the platform. Having a very good platform is important, and having a platform that has a very rich model garden is going to be the way forward for all of us. So that's going to be very, very important, right? And that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's really a unified platform that allows you to do everything from governance, infrastructure to governance, to data analytics, which is quite important, to all the AI and ML builders, to your insights, and all the way to the agents on top. So AI has moved a lot, and this is a topic which I think is very important as you go forward. And I'm happy to talk to you guys more about it. But what is one thing that's very important this year, since the end of 2024, is that Gen AI has moved beyond LLMs, right? Everybody, in the past, you just take out your phone or you take out your computer, you chat with Gemini or ChatGPT, you feel very happy because I can tell you a lot of rubbish, right, about everything. But that's not exciting, The next stage of this is the real implementation of Gen AI, the concept of what we call agentic AI, the creation of agents. Agents that can tap on the rich fabric of your LLMs, agents that can tap on all your websites and apps that you have. Honestly, this is scary because over time, you don't need apps and websites anymore. You don't. You just have an agent for everything. And we're already seeing it happening. So for the younger people here, remember one thing, go and learn about this. This is going to affect your life big time as you go forward. Okay? Now, last topic on this, right, is when I first started dealing with quantum computers about 7 years ago, quantum computers were like that. They had this huge room, because quantum computer is based on particle physics. It's about atoms, right? So they had these accelerators and everything, and it used to be like that. Well, today it's like that, right? Willow has just been announced, I think about 2 months ago, by Google. This is what quantum computing is like right now. Now, you know what's the scary part of quantum computing? The whole industry now is talking about one thing: post-quantum cryptography. It means that all your user ID passwords is going to be gone. Because when this comes into play, it will crack your user ID password in minutes or seconds, no more weeks or years or months. Which also means your whole security paradigm has to change. Otherwise, hackers will hack into you very easily. So this is another very big shift that's going to go forward. So I'll wrap up in a few minutes. So what does it take to make digital happen? Number one, very important. This is something I painted on the wall in GovTech. I actually wrote it on the wall. Okay? You always think big, but you start small, and you act fast. It's a very important thing. You must think of a vision that is big, that is impactful, that's going to impact the citizens. But don't wait for 5 years, 10 years, do some 5-year plan, 10-year plan, etc. You start small, really small. Why you do it now? Show results. When I first started GovTech, I went through an organization of 900 people. I only could find 7 people that could code well. I tested all of them, okay? So I found 7 people, I put them around a desk, and we did the first app. We did the first app with 4 people, and we spent, $60,000. That's it. We did the app in the grand total of 2 months, and the app became very, very impactful. That was when people start believing in you, that's the right way forward. No more getting an SI and spend $5 million, take 2 years to do it kind of stuff, and have an army of people sitting down somewhere. So you got to start small. You got to really start and move and get people to start understanding that the impact can be very big, even with just a small group of people, right? But then the important thing is also to think big. Don't always stop there. So when I first started, I said I had 7 developers. When I left GovTech, I got 1,600 developers, right? So that's what I mean by thinking big. but we started very small. But you also need to develop what we call an ecosystem, right? Meaning that you need to, the government, the industry, and the citizens need to have a partnership. Do you know that I spend a lot of time creating groups, feedback groups from citizens on our technology, on things we do, back to being customer-centric. If you don't engage with citizens, you don't know what they want. They are complaining at you all the time. So why don't you listen, right? And also working with the industry is important because the government can't do it alone. So companies like CDG, etc., very important, right? Because if you don't have partnerships with the industry, you won't make things happen. My last slide. I believe that the road to excellence is about developing people. That's the most important thing. In technology, at the end, it's all about people. We might say, oh, this technology, that technology, but your people cannot make it, don't understand, it's a big problem. So the government has a lot of problems. It started with everybody checking. You know, one irritating thing of being in government is that there's audits, everybody checks on you, right? So there are a lot more checkers than makers. We need to reverse the concept. So that's why I started building the tech group within GovTech, because I need people who can make, not just check. Checking is easy, making is difficult. So that's the first thing we did. Second thing is I talk about reducing toil, right? We need to get rid of operators and get more experts. This is not about getting more and more hundreds of people being operators. Your data center need not be run by 1,000 people. Your data center can be run by 20 people. While these 20 people are experts, they're not operators. Because everything else can be operated. And the thing that made a lot of people upset was that we need more doers and less managers. And you notice that that's what's happening to tech companies right now. They're getting rid of a lot of middle managers because they want people who can contribute and do the work and not just manage. Because pure management itself, I think, is losing its value over time. Even managers needs to do. So like even I was a very senior guy there, I was involved in doing architectural review every day, right? So you need managers who can do and not just managers who wear a shirt and walk around and manage. That's not the way for it. So I kind of stopped there because I think there's a lot more to discuss, and we got about another 30 minutes to have question answers. So if there's anything that you want to know, I'm more than happy to answer. So with that, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chiao Ho Chan, for giving us our useful knowledge and make us feel there's always possible in every challenge.
ค่ะก็มาถึงช่วงไฮไลท์ของงานนะคะจะเป็นโอกาสสำคัญค่ะที่เราจะได้พูดคุยกับคุณเชียวโฮชานนะคะในประเด็นที่สุดเอ็กซ์คลูซีฟเลยนะคะเรียกได้ว่าโอกาสแบบนี้เกิดขึ้นได้ยากมากๆค่ะก็เพื่อไม่ให้เสียเวลานะคะ
ครับผม Without further delay let's dive right into our exclusive panel discussion
ค่ะขอเรียนเชิญโมเดเลเตอร์ของเราค่ะคุณพัตเตอร์ธิติวัฒน์อองแสงคุณค่ะ
Mr. Chan. Hi. How are you finding Bangkok?
Good. I always like Bangkok.
Right. So I just want to say on behalf of all of us here today, what an honor it is to have you here with us today. I know you're a very busy man, but I'd actually want the audience to get to know a bit more about you. So previously you talked about how you didn't start in the public sector. No, right? No.
I never knew why I was in the public sector, actually. I spent 20 years, actually, in the private sector. I used to work for Citibank. I used to run technology for Citibank on the City International, so all the call banking platforms, credit card platforms, etc. I used to run that. I used to run the e-business for Citibank also. And I did similar thing for Barclays. So I was very much in the financial sector all my life, actually.
So what drove you into the public sector?
Midlife crisis, I think. You know, I was approached by quite a few people, and they really wanted someone that can make a massive transformation within the government. I mean, a couple of ministers actually spoke to me and said that they wanted someone from the outside to come in. Because the born and bred public servants will find it very hard to make that kind of change. right? Because they are embedded, it's quite hard for them to do it. I came in without any legacy. I came in without any baggage. I expected to be fired after about 2 years. So I don't care. I just basically go out there and make it happen, right? And I never intended to stay so long in the government. Actually, my initial thing was that I will stay about 3 years. But after that, so much work, there's so much work to be done that I stayed for 5 years. And then I wanted to quit. And then COVID came. I said, oh my God, here we go. And then we had to fight COVID. So much work to be done there. When COVID was over, it was like 8, 9 years. But I was determined to quit because I'd done enough of government.
So in that time, so it's around 10 years,
Yeah,
if I understand correctly.
10 years.
So in 10 years, you actually managed to transform Singapore to, I think Singapore's ranked 3rd on the e-government.
I don't believe in ranking, by the way.
Okay.
I think I have big fights with all the ranking agencies because I think they are looking at the wrong things. It doesn't really matter how much you're ranked. More importantly is that are you doing the right things?
Okay,
To me, that's quite important, yeah.
Okay, rankings aside then, what kind of strategies did you use? What's the secret to transforming?
Actually, if you ask me, there are probably 3 things that was quite important. One, I think that slide I showed there, about how do you drive the mindset change. That's very important. You got to start with that because it's not about technology, it's about people's thinking. I give you an example, right, of what I mean by mindset change. When I was pushing cloud a lot, because I'm quite a firm believer in cloud, in 2016, the biggest blockers were the cybersecurity people, cybersec. You know why? Because all those people were trained in a different era. I used to get very upset. I call them what you call firewall huggers because they like firewall. More firewall, better security. But that's rubbish, right? So I sent about 80 cybersec people for training on things like least privilege, zero trust, etc. It's only when they train and they start opening up their mind, they realize that actually the cloud is not dangerous. There are a lot of things that the cloud does better than just pure perimeter security. So you got to really go out there, educate people, and change the mindset. I spent a lot of time educating the ministers, the permanent secretaries, etc. Again, many of them have the very old mindset. So that's one very important thing. The second very important thing, I think, to make this happen is that you need to show results. And that's why I keep telling you, you need to start small. Because when I first was preaching all these things like agile and all that stuff, everybody look at me and say, who's this clown, right? We're talking about customer centricity, everything. But once you start showing things that actually works in a very dramatic change, like instead of spending $5 million on this thing, I only spent 200,000 or 100,000, and I did it in 2 months, I guarantee you people will start taking notice. So there's no point talking about it. You got to show outcomes. Because if you don't show outcomes, nobody's going to believe you. Right?
Mindset, outcomes.
And outcomes, those things are very important.
And you mentioned there was one more?
Yeah, the leadership support is very important, right? I mean, it's like, if your boss here doesn't support you, you won't succeed.
So we need the support of our bosses as well, right?
Definitely. No, don't underestimate how important it is that, the mindset change also leads to one thing. Is that when your boss starts talking like you have succeeded. Meaning that your boss are saying the same thing you are saying. That means he's supporting you. But your boss is saying something totally different from you, you got a problem. So you got to keep indoctrinating him or her until the boss starts saying the same thing as you. Then you're successful. It's very important.
But first you need to show them that.
You need to show
first,
outcomes. Right? Because if you don't show outcome, nobody believes in blind faith. The only people who believe in blind faith is religion, because you believe in something greater than you. But everything else, you need to show outcome. Because nobody is going to believe in you until you show them that there is a better way it can be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you actually, like bringing everyone to the training session, that was one of the things that you first did.
I trained a lot of PERMSECs and ministers, I actually go and train them because many of them still have a very old understanding of technology, and it's quite dangerous. And unfortunately, many of them also, okay, this is not politically very correct, but many of them are swayed by system integrators for a long time. I'm serious. You know why system integrators do that? Because they earn a lot of money. They got $200 million contract. But if I do it in a better way, the $200 million contract could become a $20 million contract. So what do you think you're going to do? So honestly, I had a lot of fights with system integrators. I really had a lot of fights, a lot. Trust me. I wanted to get quite a few of them out of the picture because they just don't get it. And they just keep wanting to pitch all these big projects that cost so much money and eventually blow up. My first 1.5 years in the government was cleaning up all the big projects. All of them were blowing up, every one of them. 1 year delayed, 2 years delayed, over budget. That is like almost a story I can write, man.
So just like what you mentioned just now, like you have to reduce it first, right?
You have to. And the thing is that public sector people are lazy. I'm sorry, I'm very direct. So they're lazy because you know why? They want to outsource everything, right? So they get someone to do it. All they do is to just be a contract manager. If you are late, I will LD you, I will sue you, etc. That's all they do. So the next thing I did was to build capabilities. I spoke to the Deputy Prime Minister at that time. I had lunch with him. I had a long chat with him. I said that, look, if we don't have real technology people in the government, we will fail. So he was the one that gave me the permission to go out there and start building a tech team within the government. I told you I started with 7 people, right? Then it went to about 25 people, it went to 40 people. And this is like a drug. Once you have capability, right, and you deliver good things, people want more, right? People realize that, wow, it's important. So now for once, our people can challenge the Googles of the world, our people can challenge the vendors to come with the best solution. And I hire people from everywhere. I used to go to Seattle, San Francisco, etc., and just talk to Singaporeans working there, asking them to come back. So I hire a lot of good people. I hire people from Google, I hire people from Amazon, I hire people from Pixel, I hire from all kinds of places. I was convincing them to come back to Singapore to help the government, right? Because if you don't do that, it won't happen. You know, you need people who understand technology and how the power of technology to be able to make it happen.
So, like you said that, you know, how you have to educate them first and then help them see the importance of technology. So actually, our company...
And prove to them.
Prove to them, yeah. Right. So, as you probably already know, we work quite closely with the government.
I know.
Right. So I think it would be beneficial if you could share with us, like, what are some things that we can do? What's the most crucial thing that we can do to, you know, help drive digital transformation in the public sector?
You know, as I said, I'm very, very direct person, so don't blame me, right? I think you need to show the government there are better ways of doing it, rather than just being in your comfort zone. The problem with many local tech companies in Singapore, Thailand, I don't know enough, but in Singapore is that they went into their comfort zone. They're very good at pitching for government contracts. They're very good at that. They're better than anyone else. But they are so comfortable with that way of doing things and getting hundreds of millions from the government every year that they have no desire to change, to get better. And there are much better ways of doing things. When I pitched cloud, for example, in the government, many of them hated me for that. Really, many of them really didn't like me because they said that, oh, you're going to a cloud, which means that, you know why? Because you have zero cloud capability. So now they're scampering and panicking, right? So I think as a good company, you need to take the first step and not just reside in a comfort zone. Because if you start residing in a comfort zone, sooner or later, you'll be out of the business. That's the way I look at it, right? Somebody will be smart enough to call you out, right? And it will happen one day. The question is when, but it will happen one day. So you got to take that first step and say, oh, I'm going to go to the government. I'm going to partner some other good companies. Then I'm going to go to the government, and I'm going to pitch a very different way of doing things and show them that it makes sense. I might not get $100 million for it. Okay, but I'm investing for the future. Right? I think that's quite important. Because if you don't have the guts to do that, then sooner or later, other people will overtake you in time. Because in technology, when you stand still, everybody's going to just go past you very quickly. That's one thing I learned very quickly. Right? And but it's not an easy decision to make because it does affect you. But you start small again, huh? Try a few things, then build some capabilities, and that's how you do it.
So, sorry for putting on the spot here, but what are some like things, like before we actually get the projects, obviously, there's a lot of bureaucracy before, we acquire the projects. But if we want to prove to the government, like some of our ideas, like how would you say the best approach would be to do that?
I'll give you an example, right? I talk about the first thing we did, right? 7 people, all of them, okay, I don't want to be ageist here. Every one of them was below 30 except 2. So 5 was below 30, 2 was about 32, 33 years old. They're all young people. I'm not saying that young people are better, don't get me wrong. But they were quite fearless. They had nothing to lose, right? So I gave you an example. There was once a very bad problem with the MRT, which is like your BTS system. One of the major lines, Circle Line, which is a major line, had a lot of disruption. There were a lot of signal failures. So the train will stop, and literally hundreds of thousands of people can't go to work. So the LTA, which is the Land Transport Authority, was panicking, right? But the CEO of LTA is my friend. So I called him one day and said, hey, can I send a couple of my guys there to help you? He said, are your guys transportation engineers? I said, no, but they are technology people. He said, then what the hell can they do? I said, just give them a chance to try and help, right? So I sent 3 guys there. They're all young guys. They look so young, they look like kids, like kids in secondary school, So 3 of them went there on a Saturday morning, went to the command center. The chief engineer of transport looked at him and said, like you are very young. Look at 3 of them and said, what are you doing here? He said, oh, we are here to help you. He said, who are you guys? Oh, we're from GovTech. What do you do? Oh, we are data scientists. He said, huh? How are you going to help me? You're not a transportation engineer, right? So he said, no. Why don't you give us some data about the train arrivals and everything? So the transportation engineer was upset, right? So they just said, okay, I'll give you something. They gave him an Excel file. 240 rows and I think like about another 80 columns about train arrivals of the Circle Line. These guys went to a room somewhere, they plotted everything out, and then they found the problem. You know what's the problem? The problem they found from the data was that when one particular train was in the system, it disrupted the signaling process. And that's why the thing failed. So we convinced them to take the train out of circulation for 1 week to try it out. They took the train out of circulation, the problem was solved. So that's the power of it. 3 fellas spend 1 afternoon, solve the problem. And you need to be able to do things like that.
So were you actually confident, before you sent your people?
No, I was not. I was just saying, it's a no-loss thing because these 3 of them wanted to do it. You know why they're frustrated? Because they take the Circle Line every day. They say, every day I can't go to work. They wanted to do it because they wanted to solve that problem. So again, get a small group of people, find a use case in the government, show them how you can solve it. Why not?
So I think it's about the drive of people as well. I mean, that's one of our core values
correct.
as well.
Because people are motivated to do things, solve real problems that matters to them. Right. For these 3 guys, they take the Circle Line every day. They're totally pissed off that they are late for work every day because they couldn't take the Circle Line. So that's why they did it.
So, I mean, it starts, as employees as well, and we're also citizens as well.
Exactly.
So if we see like a pain point, I think a good thing would,
exactly.
We can actually just jump in.
I can give you another use case, right? A lot of people, Thailand will be the same. Do you know that it's actually very difficult to complain to the government? Because it depends on which department you go to. So I'll give you an example. If you've got an animal problem in your house, which department do you complain to? I realize in Singapore it's not that simple. No? If it's a bird, there's one department. If it's a wild animal, there's another department. If it's a dog, another department. If it's a crow, there's another department. Right? Because government is all fragmented, right? So a couple of my guys got pissed off. They got pissed off. You know what they did? They write an app, right? That help triage all these things, right? So you do a complaint, they will analyze the things, simple decision tree, and they'll point you to the right department. Simple things. They did it in like 2 weeks. Not a lot of effort, but it made the citizens very happy. And then they assign SLAs to solving the problem to the relevant agencies, right? So now there's accountability. These use cases are not difficult. You're a citizen, you know that if it makes you upset, I'm sure it makes another 1,000 people upset. Solve those problems. It's simple, but it's effective. Huh? And you don't need a crew of 200 people and $5 million to solve it. No.
So, like, how do you break down? You know, like, you know how there's like different departments, different silos in governments and all. Even within the companies, I mean, there's different teams.
You see, that's why I say the support of the leader is very important. So when we were first created, right, when GovTech was first created, it was under the Ministry of Communication and Information. Then we spoke to the PM. We said that, people don't listen to us because if you're under the one ministry, other ministries don't care about you, right? Because when you say something, they look at you with right? So we moved GovTech to under the PMO, under the direct charge of the Prime Minister. So, of course, now people are more attentive because we are no more just one ministry. Then we did something even more brilliant. We got GovTech to be run by this interministerial committee, chaired by the Deputy PM himself. So now people will start listening to you. And there are like 5 ministers in there that are quite powerful. So of course people start listening to you.
Well, what about, like, since there's a lot, obviously if you have the support of the leadership, like you have, credibility. Yeah. But then what if everyone is fighting for that credibility? Like how do you get to work along with
I can tell you, if you look at the entire government, there are very few people with credibility or with the capability. I'm being very honest with you, right? So be the first one to do it well, show outcome, and then all of a sudden you'll find that you get results. That's how we started this whole thing, honestly, right? It's not because of some grand strategy study by clever people for 5 years. No, I don't believe in 5-year plan because it's too long. 5 years, I don't know what the hell I'm going to be, right? So it doesn't matter to me. So these are the things that you need to do. But you think big. You think of a much bigger objective in the future, but you cover these things, basically. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just very direct. I hope I don't offend anyone.
I don't think anyone's offended. It's good. I think it's really beneficial for all of us. And just, so, with technology, I mean, you're an avid fan of technology, right? Do you think, like, it can be used? Like how can our people use technology to, break down these silos, would you say?
So that's why I believe in this concept of democratization of technology. Actually, in both ways, both from the technology point of view as well as from the user point of view. I believe that technology should be the great leveler for society, right? And if we do it well, actually it can benefit the citizens a lot. I mean, my only concern and care is that how can I make the citizens' lives better? That's it. 2 things, right? How do I make the citizens' life better? And how do I make the businesses more efficient and effective? That's all I care about. You know why? Because you can. Technology can make a big difference. I'll give you an example. We go to the ground, we hear the complaints. The thing that businesses complain the most about is that they have to deal with multiple agencies. They always have this problem. So I'll give you an example. If you want to start a restaurant, I don't know about Thailand, but if you want to start a restaurant in Singapore, you realize you need 8 licenses, not one. Huh? Fire safety, food hygiene, whatever it is.
From different agencies?
They're all different agencies, right? So similar. Then first of all, if you are new, a young guy started a restaurant, you don't even know which license to apply for, right? Because you don't know, so you need to consult somebody, and there are some people who want to be consultants for that, okay? Then you also realize that every agency asks you for the same data. So before you know it, you fill in forms everywhere, right, to apply for those 8 licenses. And we did that. We realized that at the end, to apply for the 8 licenses, you have to key in 632 fields of data. Yeah, everybody asks you for all kinds of things, right? So we said, no, that shouldn't be the case. We created this thing called GoBiz, a software. You go in there, you tell them what you want to apply, what business you want to start. They'll tell you which license to apply for. Then we will pull the data directly from ACRA, which is the registrar of companies, and we were able to consolidate the data fields. After that, you only have to key in about 20 over fields of data for the licenses. That's it, data that has not captured us before. But more importantly, we maintain the license for you. If you have to pay, there'll be direct payment. Then we maintain it into your portal, your own portal. When it expires, we notify you. Now, is that very difficult to do? No, lah. But is it important and impactful? Yeah, it is. As a businessman, I'll be very happy if you do that for me, right? Rather than me going through all this pain. So that's what I mean, right? The way we look at things has always been about what is the impact for citizens or for businesses. If there's a positive impact, it's worth doing. But if it's not, then why are we doing it in the first place? What are we wasting money for, right? So that's how we look at it. I know it's quite drastic, but
I think we just got a new idea for business just now, so it's kind of like a, like a directory of what to do.
It's just we had this thing called the e-advisor. Basically, you go in there and say, I want to start a restaurant. Then they ask you what kind of restaurant or whatever it is, a few questions. Then they'll tell you, you need these 8 licenses. Click here to start the application process. That's all. It's a very simple thing, right? And I think those things are not rocket science. Actually, a lot of government things are not rocket science. We just make it a lot more complex, as I said, than it's supposed to be, right? Yeah, so, and the Go business, we started with that, and it got more complicated. We started also putting in grants. Then for certain businesses, you might be able to apply for a grant. They'll tell you, oh, your business qualifies for this grant, but do you want to apply for the grant? If yes, apply for this grant. And you know how we can do it? Because the license and the grants were all on platforms. They were not single applications. So it allows us to do it very quickly.
So like one last question, so if we have solutions, like if we want to propose solutions, how do we make sure that these solutions that we propose, they don't get thrown away after maybe like 3 years of usage?
Yeah, you can't be successful all the time. I want to be this is about fail fast, right? We try a lot of things. I tell you, the amount of things we try is amazing, right? Did every single thing succeed? No. Actually, a lot of things did not succeed. But because we didn't invest $20 million on it, it's okay to fail fast. The whole concept of failing fast is not that you want to fail, but you never know, right? To hedge your bets, you cannot invest so much money in front of it. If every project is $50 million, you're going to be in trouble. But if every project is a couple $100,000, it's okay. You fail, finish, no big deal, move forward. Life, right?
We can just throw it away, right?
Okay. This is the difficult part of government. I learned that starting a project in government is difficult because all the procurement rules and all the approvals, etc. Killing a project is even more difficult because you know why? It's subject to audit, right? Oh, you spent $200,000, why do you kill a project? So we had to change a lot of these rules over time, right? So at the end, I had like an investment fund from Ministry of Finance. It wasn't a lot. The investment fund was, I think, about $20 million over 5 years. And we use that to kind of fund these kind of experiments. And once it's successful, we'll scale it up. If it's not successful, right off. And we have gates. We have like gate 1, whereby I only give you like $30,000, $40,000. You only got 3 months to prove to me. You can't prove it, it's gone. If you are successful, you go to gate 2. Gate 2 will give you about 100,000, another 5 or 6 months. You're successful, then you have to go and pitch to a particular agency or ministry to support the project. If you can get the agency or ministry to support the project, we can give you up to $1 million to do it. And we'll give you one year or 18 months. Then once you are successful in that, then we will scale it up to whole government. So it's really, gates, that we do. Because if not, nothing's going to happen.
So I think based on our time, we have a little bit of time left. I just want to use this time, to maybe get a few questions from the audience. And actually, the first questions are coming up on the screen. But then I think we'll accept questions after this. But just one more thing I want you to share is if you were in charge, of, let's say, the GovTech in Thailand, what do you think is the first thing that we need to do right now?
I think, right, the thing is that we got to align with the government, the leadership, to focus on what they want to do. Because if they are not aligned with you, nothing is going to happen. You can hit your head against the wall, nothing is going to happen. So the first thing, you need to align the leadership, the Prime Minister as well as some of the ministers, right? You need to align. And unfortunately about politics is how do you make them successful, right? That's the key thing, right? It's not about you, it's about them, right? What are you going to do that's going to make them successful? And they can go out there and announce and say, look, I've done all these things, even though they didn't do it, doesn't matter.
Them, basically.
Yeah, so it's very important. That's the first step. You don't do that, you'll just be another ministry or another agency. Let me put it this way. So that's a very important first step. And the second step is, as I said, show outcomes. You got to show outcomes. Don't go and ask for $10 million. It's not going to happen, right? Take whatever small money you have, show something impactful, then people say, wow, this is good. And I told you, success is like a drug. When people see success, they want to invest more in it and more and more in it. That's how it works. It's no different from a private sector company, honestly. I think a lot of people tend to get carried away by, oh yeah, in the government, it's all about the bureaucracy, etc. It's not about that. Yeah, as you go forward.
So just to sum it all up, I think it's about, being driven to actually prove it to the leadership, gain the leadership's trust. And then after that, I think it opens quite a lot of doors.
Ultimately, right, if this is not something that the government wants to do, then don't bother. You'll be paying lip service, right? Then why do it? Right? But if the government thinks it's so important to them, it's about them. I mean, people are selfish, right? It's about them. How do you make them successful? If you can show that, how do you pitch all this against the national agenda? Very important. I always tell my guys that don't do things for fun. If the national agenda is these 5 items and your item doesn't align to that, you got a problem. Then who's going to fund you, right, in the first place? So I think these are quite important thinking as you go forward. Yeah.
Okay, so I think now I want to give a chance to the audience to maybe ask a few questions. So are there any questions from the crowd?
Hello. Thank you very much for your sharing. I would like to ask you since the first day that you discuss encourage to the government to use the cloud to migrate the legacy system to the cloud, how long does it take to at this stage for right now? This is the first question, sorry, but I have four questions that I would like to ask. I'm sorry. The first one is how long does it take until now to the finish line?
Yeah, I'll answer quickly. You'll be surprised, right? It took me 3 years to change the cloud policy, 3 years. And it's because, as I said, the cybersecurity people were not confident. They had to re-educate many of them. We had to rewrite a lot of the policies. We had to convince the Prime Minister himself. We had to convince me. So it took about nearly 3 years or 2.5 years to do the policy. But once we got that through, right, it took me another 5 years to put 70% of the government in the cloud. Right? So once you get that done, it's quite fast. But getting them through is not easy. Yeah.
So the next question for me is what is the first project for you that you think that at that time you thought that if you implement this and it will be successful through all the ministries?
We started small, as I told you, right? We started really small projects. We found problems. It's about discovering problems. Then we solve the problem. It's as simple as that, right? We did 5 or 6 very successful projects in the first year. And they were very small. Many of them were like $100,000, $50,000. Do it 2-3 months. Because I didn't have a big team. I had 7 people. You know, how much can I do, right? But we showed that each of these projects was very impactful. And that's when people start believing in us. And then they were willing to invest in us as you go forward, right? Yeah.
So how can you convince that the data on their on-premise, it means server,
yeah,
and go in the cloud, it should be on the in the highly credential for them? How can you make them confident in this?
So that's why I mentioned just now in that slide that cloud is not a single flavor. It's really a portfolio, right? So always start with the lowest hanging fruit, the simplest thing. I took all the school websites, I put it on the cloud. School websites, no big deal. It's public data in the first place. So in that context, anything that is unclassified can go to commercial cloud, doesn't matter. Then it gets more difficult. Then we went to the restricted data. That way, that's when we started having some challenges. And you'll be surprised, the biggest challenge did not come from cybersecurity. You know, it came from who? The Attorney General, legal. You know why? Because they are saying that for restricted data and above, it has to be in Singapore, because when something goes wrong, the Singapore law applies. That's the reason. It's not because of cybersecurity, right? And they want to make sure that they are able to prosecute the cloud providers if there's something wrong, because they'll be under Singapore jurisdiction. For like Thailand, same thing, right? So that's the second part. Then the third part got more complex, right? When you go to confidential and secret data. That one is very tricky, right? Because they want air gap, they want everything. But those solutions were not available even like 3 years ago. But now with Google, we have GDCH, for example. It allows that to happen. Singapore was the first implementer of GDCH. And the first guys to do it were the military, because they want the secret data in there, right? So again, it's not one flavor, it's multiple flavors. And you need to be patient about getting things through, but also technology will catching up as you go forward, right? So this is the way we did it, actually.
So my last question. Sorry. Right now, your architecture is the serverless out now, or just microservice which run with the Kubernetes?
So sorry, again?
Right now, that your architecture is on the serverless already, or just use the
It's a combination of both, okay? Now, the whole concept of microservice was quite useful to us, because what happened was that in the past, right, everything was monolithic, right? Everything was monolithic. It was very hard to implement. So what we did was that we started taking simple packets, right, and making it into API. When we made it API, so we created what we call the Singapore Government API Gateway, called APEX. At that time, we realized that the best way to do these things going forward is to really create APIs rather than just using the legacy system. But we start serving wrapping many of the legacy systems too, right? And that's how we were able to do, like, for example, the Go Business thing. Because what it does is it fires a whole bunch of APIs. We take the data back, that's what we did, right? So, but that architecture is important, and building the API gateway is important. Because one of the biggest challenge in government, it's not that they don't have data, they got a lot of data, but discoverability is a problem. People don't know where the data is. But when you put a proper catalog on the API gateway, people can discover it. So that's the difference. So it's a very interesting architecture discussion. You're a technical guy, we can sit down and go through the technical architecture, because it's actually a very interesting thing. And then, of course, later on we went to serverless, etc., right? That's more the technology part. But the whole concept of APIs and services is a key cornerstone of all these things as you go forward. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe I think we'll take maybe 2 more questions. Does anyone in the audience have a question for Mr. Chan? Any questions from the front row? Okay.
Thank you very much. I really like your last slide, talking about like people less checker, be more doer. Do you have any trick that we can change that people, that kind of people, to be the one that we used to, that we should have?
So I think, so one of the things that we did also was develop this concept called the competency framework. You see, the problem with the government employees for a long time is that promotion, performance appraisal, everything was very much based on longevity, right? You stay 5 years, you get promoted, you do your work properly, you get your bonus, etc., right? But in the tech industry or in a tech organization like this, competency is very important. So we actually got people onto a competency framework. Every group of people have certain competencies that they must achieve. That's how you force people to learn and get better, right? And this is where you define the competencies. But it's a very difficult process, trust me. It took us about 3 years, very painful. Some people hate you for that because you know why? Because it changes the entire performance appraisal process and the entire promotion process and the entire compensation process. So the moment it touches money, you know it's very difficult, right? But it needs to be done. So we have what you call market, we call it MDP, market, I can't remember what, MDR, market rates. So, for example, for certain competencies, if you achieve certain competency, we pay you extra, you know? Why? Because those are very hard skills to keep. If you don't pay them enough, they will leave. So very specifically, certain skills like cybersecurity, certain kind of software development, they get extra kind of pay, like a skills-based pay in the sense of a word. So it's actually a very complex process, but it's very important if you really want to transform the organization as you go forward, right? It takes a lot of, at the end, you also want to be kind to people. You don't want to be unkind to people, right? I mean, we are not monsters, right? We also want to slowly get people to ramp up and train up, etc. But then you need to give them the conduit to go and do training and everything to get to that level of competency. But they can take careers into their own hands because they can influence their career through developing the competencies as you go forward. But trust me, because when it comes to money and people, it's very difficult to do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so one last question, sure, from the boss. Yes. Okay. Since our moderator say it's two last questions, I'm going to be the last question here. I think your answer to my question probably you have elaborated there already, but again, I would like to raise this question to you again in front of our leaders behind me. What if you were me in my shoes, running as a CEO of a company, working closely with the government as a system integrator, right? What will you recommend me or give me a tip? Let's say this is top 3 most important thing or top 5 that I should do to turn around for the, again, technology change, because you mentioned earlier about this cloud, AI, quantum, and so on and so forth, and coming very fast. So what will you recommend me to do? ถามยากมากเลย เราก็ได้ยินพร้อมกันหมดด้วย
First of all, I don't envy your job because that's why I don't want to do your job. But no, okay. I think like any organization, like when I first started GovTech, right? The younger people were very, very, for lack of a better word, very impatient. They say, oh yeah, you know, we need to change the people, we need to do everything and in a new way and everything. It's almost like we are better than you. That kind of attitude, right? Because we are starting hiring some very good people, and they get very impatient. They say, but those guys, they've been there for like 20 years, what the hell are they doing, kind of stuff. And I think that's very dangerous. Because whatever it is, as I said, we are still carrying leaders. We don't want to be the kind of person that just go out there and say, yeah, all this is rubbish, right? So how do you bring people along? I think that's really one of the very important things. That's why this competency framework and everything is very important. How do you bring people along? I think people want, okay, for people who don't care, that's their problem. But many people would want to improve. So how do you bring them along, right? I spoke to my minister that time, Vivian Balakrishnan. He's a very wise guy. I like him a lot. He's a doctor, by the way. So he says that it's almost like you're building a new heart, which is still very small. And then you're growing this, and this one will shrivel over time. But the blood needs to go from here to here, because otherwise this blood will die. This heart will die. And he's very right. You cannot just kill this, because then the whole thing will die. The question is how do you push the blood across to this new heart so it will grow as you go forward? Can you do it for everybody? Answer is probably no. If you can do it for 70% of the people, I think it's a good thing. You're doing a good thing. So you got to be a bit patient there. That's number one. That's quite. It's about people. Number two is that, like any business, I'm a commercial person. I'm not a government person by training. You still need to feed your revenue and P&L every year. You can't just say, I don't do an SI job anymore. You can't. So that business has to persist. Question is that, are you able to start different parts of the business to focus on other things, like from cloud, for AI, for example, I said, you should really look seriously into it, because ultimately, if you don't start now, right now you got a cash cow that can fund this thing. You need to start somewhere, right? And get the right people, and again, the blood will slowly flow across to this side over time, right? So that's the second thing I would do. The third thing, which I think is extremely important, is also leadership is very important to me. I think leadership is everything, right? It's how do you make sure that you promote the right people to leadership that will almost echo the same kind of thinking as you. I had a lot of problems because when I first started, I inherited a lot of people that was quite difficult to work with. But I didn't want to go out there and just hire 50 people tomorrow morning. It doesn't work too. You need to convert your leaders. I'm a firm believer in that, right? Because I think if you just go out there and hire 20 people tomorrow morning as leaders, you're going to create a bimodal organization. This group, that group, they kill each other, they'll fight each other. Guarantee. I don't want that to happen. I put a few there, but for the rest, we really try to convert them to a different kind of leaders as you go along. And it starts from the senior leaders, right? Once you do that, you can make it happen. But I think that's quite important as you go forward. So these are a few things that I think we should do as you go forward. Yeah, but I would want to do your job, please. These sort of jobs are very difficult to do. Great. All right. No, thank you so much for your time. And really, I'm very grateful and thankful for the opportunity to come here. And I hope you guys have a good offsite. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chen.